Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 71, and today's guest is Steve Washer.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
I'm Adam Franklin, and you are listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments where we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works. This show is brought to you by our book called Web Marketing That Works, and specifically the bonus marketing templates that go with it. So you can get your hands on those templates if you head over to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now today's guest is Steve Washer from brainyvideo.com, and he's the author of The Video Brain, which is a wonderful book on how to use video marketing effectively. In today's show, he shares some of the basics of how to actually utilize video. And in my own experience, video has been one of those things that has this barrier to doing, not a technological barrier necessarily, because we've all got video cameras on our smartphones in our pocket, like we can be recording video at any time of the day or night. But what holds us back, I think, is this mental barrier that for some reason we're going to say something and it's up online forever, which is a bit terrifying. Plus, as Steve dives into in the show, a little bit of the imposter syndrome, like who are we to be sharing our thoughts and ideas online? So Steve gets to the bottom of some of that and teaches us how we can overcome those fears. And he talks through some of the technical things, some of the basic stuff that really can make a huge difference in the quality of the actual videos that we create. And it's very interesting sometimes when people show you behind the scenes of what actually happens with videos. Like the videos themselves can look wonderful, but if they actually scan around and show you the room they're in or behind the scenes, it can be very, very humble. But by doing a couple of things really well, like the background and the lighting and the actual audio quality, which are three things that Steve talks to us about in the show, can make such a difference to having a good quality video. So let's get on with the show, and here's Steve. Hi, it's Adam Franklin here, and I have on the line Steve Washer. How are you, Steve?
I'm great, Adam. How are you?
Really well, thanks. Whereabouts in the world are you joining me from today, Steve?
I'm joining you from Ice Station Zebra, better known as Windsor, Connecticut, in the U.S.
Well, a very big welcome from Bondi in Sydney, and thanks for joining me on the call. Now, you're a video expert from brainyvideo.com. Now, I'm just hoping you can give us a little overview of what your business does and what you help people achieve.
Oh, well, sure. Brainy Video is kind of a consultancy, and we work with lots of people, entrepreneurs, mostly solo entrepreneurs, change makers, authors, consultants, somatic practitioners, on creating a more, I guess you might say, a more human presence long distance. And that's what I find video can really handle quite nicely. So there's a lot of educational programs that we do, and the occasional live program where we bring people in. But it's mostly education and helping people get their whole setup going.
Yeah, video is such a powerful format, but so many of us are scared of actually doing it. And I guess there's quite a few mental barriers, more so than technological barriers, that we face these days. What are some of the common hurdles or objections that you help people overcome?
That's a great question. I think that the objections they're basically two primary objections, or I should say problems, with getting started in doing video. And the first one, I think, is, I think you rightly pointed out, is kind of a mental block. I think there's very much, you're familiar with the imposter syndrome, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the imposter syndrome really rises up and gets amped up to a huge degree when people start thinking about doing video. And it's really best just to let that slide because, it can really be quite crippling. The point is that, none of us are born to be movie stars or TV stars. And when you're doing video, it's really not about one to many, even though that is physically what you're doing. What you're really doing is more one-to-one kind of work. And so it's just more like sitting down and, across the kitchen table and speaking to someone and trying to have a relationship with someone or establish a relationship with someone. Anyway, I don't mean to go into, the answer to all this, but that's one of the main problems, I think, is this feeling of, I have a face made for radio and, all this kind of stuff. And then the second major objection or problem is the technical one. It used to be just a couple of years ago, or maybe even a year ago, the question I got most often was, what's the best camera to use? And that's really not the big question anymore. You want to know what the big question is now?
Yeah.
So right now, the question that seems to be, really bothering people when they're considering doing video marketing is, what's the best editing program for a PC, for a Mac, for an iPad, for my iPhone, And that indicates to me that people are really seriously thinking about video marketing. They've seen some of the stuff that's out there. They see how the bar is being raised and they don't want to be left behind.
That's interesting because I do some social media speaking, and a lot of the questions people ask is, what social media platform should I be on? And my answer to that often is, well, it doesn't really matter. Just pick one that you're comfortable with and work on what you've got to say. It's the message and it's the connection and it's the content that's more important than what actual platform you choose. So,
Yeah, I remember my friend Perry Lawrence used to say, when someone asked him, years ago about the best video camera to use, he said, what's the one you're sitting next to? That's the best one. The one you're going to use. That's the best one.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess in terms of the actual content of videos and telling the story or crafting what a video, in your experience, what actually does make for a good video?
Well, Adam, you have to understand there are like, 15 or 16 different kinds of video that you can make. So that's, it's a little difficult to say, well, what should be in a book?
Yes. Yeah.
There's so many variables. I mean, where do we start? You know what? Maybe the better place to start is if you think about video as being spots on a map that get you from here to there. And those spots on the map are waypoints. By the way, I'm a pilot, so I always think about terms, like if I think about navigation, I think about everything in terms of waypoints. So if I fly over my waypoint at the right time and I have all my waypoints laid out, then I get where I'm going. So this is the way I think about video, and all the 16 different kinds of video is, where do they go in your marketing funnel? So you have an opt-in video and you can have a product delivery video, and then you can have an opt-in to a launch video, and then you can have your video content that is being like your pre-launch content, which is the educational pieces. And then you've got your sales videos, and then you've got maybe a video on an order page and a video that's a thank you video for when someone buys. And see, the content for all of these videos are going to be radically different. So I don't know. Do you want to focus on one kind of video in particular?
Oh, look, yeah, I've got a few more specific questions about the different types of video, which I'll get to shortly. So you're kind of saying that for every step of the process that you're taking people through the marketing and sales funnel, that there's really an opportunity to actually have a video at each step of the way guiding the person through that journey.
Yes. I really believe that's the way I do it. And the beauty of that is that it also keeps you on track, because you're thinking, well, I better have a video here because that's the point in the process where there's a conversion. And if you don't think about having a video there, well, what are you going to put there? And so a lot of times I think people just sort of, let that slide. And so that's a conversion opportunity that's lost. Whereas if they just pinned it with a video, they would know they would need at least something there.
And how do you find the difference in conversion rates between, say, a page with no video versus a page with a video on it?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on the industry, but and I look at these statistics all the time. And I've seen that on opt-in pages, at least for me, they increase my opt-in results by well over 100%. I want to say an average of 80%. And I've tried, doing pages with and without video, and I've seen statistics on other people who use video or not use video. And it's just ridiculous, I mean, if you have a video on a page where you're selling, say, a physical good of some kind, which I don't do, but, I've read a lot about this, and people are saying that, the experts are saying that you can expect reasonably a 32% uplift when you have a video on the page. And by the way, this is whether people watch the video or not.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's some hypothesis that this has something to do with the fact that, well, if someone took the trouble to put a video up there, they're probably taking the trouble in other areas as well, like customer service. So maybe we can take a risk.
And in your experience, I guess with your videos, a lot of yours are talking head videos. Do you find that they work better because it's more personal and they can see you as a human being? Or is it just as effective if you're a bit more shy, I should say, to do like a slideshow video?
I think that a case can definitely be made that some of these 15 videos can definitely be slideshow type videos or PowerPoint type videos, Camtasia, and they'll work very, very well. I think many times they'll work extremely well for sales situations where you're actually selling something with the video, and you've seen a page where there's nothing on the page except a video, and then maybe a buy now button that comes under it later. Those can work really, really well without having someone on camera. But for the most part, with the kind of people that I work with and the kind of business that I have, which there's a lot of consulting involved, you are selling yourself, and so it helps for people to get to know you a lot better. And so in that case, it's better for you to be on camera. I always recommend that people put themselves on camera to show that there is a personality behind the business for certain kinds of video.
Okay, then. Well, let's come back to the different types of videos. I mean, if you're doing a talking head video, how would you typically structure one of those, I guess, in terms of length, and does that matter, the content and how that's structured, and also things like lighting and audio? Can you take us through an introductory guide to the basics that we really do need to have covered?
Well, let me just take as an example for this the kinds of videos that I do kind of on a weekly basis, a video that I might put up on YouTube as an introduction to a topic that will bring them back to the website where they can learn more about it and have a deeper experience. How about we start there?
Sure.
Okay, so those kinds of videos I call the coach video, because what you're doing is you're teaching a particular topic that you're an expert in, and you do it in a particular way. And there's a structure to this video that's really, really important. And when I put these kinds of videos together, let's say if I took, 8 hours to put this video together, and I'm not saying it's going to take 8 hours, but let's just say hypothetically it took 8 hours, I might spend 4 hours on the script. Abraham Lincoln, I said, he's the guy who was purported to say, well, if I got an hour to chop down a tree, I'll spend 50 minutes sharpening the axe. And so this is kind of how I feel about video content, because I see a lot of videos out there that are just sort of long and rambly, and they go on and on and on, and they just get very frustrating. So I work really hard on the script to make every word count. And even in a video like this, maybe especially in a video like this, because there's a lot of elements that I want to stuff into that video. So generally I start with a cold open, which is there's no music, there's no graphics, there's no nothing, there's just good lighting and it's quiet except for me talking. And I want to have some humor in there, and I want to have a really pointed ending. And then that pointed ending creates suspense and takes us into the animated opening, which takes us into the real introduction to the video. And then I'll introduce myself with something that maybe enhances my credibility, like, hi, I'm Steve, author of such and such, and creator of this and that, and whatever. And then go into the problem that we're going to solve, a little bit more into the problem, because we already introduced the problem in the cold open. And then introduce the solution, then expand on that. And ideally, you'll give the thing that you're talking about a name. So this is going to be like, best thing to do is washerize your story, if I want to use my own name in that, right? Atomize your story. Ooh, atomize. I like that, Adam. You could use that. I'll give you that one for free. And so you tell the story as an example for what you're teaching. You teach your point, you summarize, you do the call to action, and it's really good to have a very specific call to action, not kind of a general, hey, come back to my website and get some more free stuff. It's come back to my website and get the full, complete story on atomizing your marketing story or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then end with your animated call to action kind of thing. Now, that video can be anywhere from 2 minutes to maybe 15 minutes. Now, for a 15-minute video, hopefully you've worked on it for 2 weeks, because it's got to be really interesting. But I'll tell you, the videos that I've made that have the most views on YouTube are longish. There's one that's over 10 minutes long. And some of the short ones don't get much, play at all, just because the topics weren't all that interesting to people. So, like physically, you want to talk about physically how you put them together?
Yeah, just some basics. Like, if you haven't done your first video yet, what are some basic things that you should keep into account? And by the same token, what don't you need to worry about when you're starting out?
Okay, so when you're first starting out, I wouldn't worry about having fancy backgrounds or fancy graphics or anything like that. I think the only thing that there's two things, three things that you really should try to get right, but none of them are hard. None of these three things are hard. One is your background. Just arrange your background so that, and people forget that it's not just them in the video, there's all this stuff that's behind them, and it can be very distracting. So if you're, I once saw a video where a guy was teaching multi-level marketing in a zoo. Like, what? Why are you doing this? There's people walking around, there's animals. They're far more interesting than what you're telling me. So you want to have a background that supports what you're doing, that makes sense with what you're doing, and arrange it. Like, you can be in your kitchen. I've seen people shoot lovely videos in their kitchen, like even in their bedroom, if it's set up kind of like a little office or a hotel room, as long as it's neatly and artfully arranged. Okay. So that's background. The second thing, and that's just a matter of paying attention. And there's no special skill you need for that. The second thing is your lighting. And if you've never done a video before, I would recommend that rather than getting any fancy lights or anything, just set up in front of your window. Make it a nice big window. And what that does, and obviously shoot during the day. And what that does is it takes the sunlight and it softens it. It turns your window into a big soft box. And that soft box, that's the best kind of light to have on you. So you're not getting like harsh shadows, and all the shadows are nice and soft, and it evenly illuminates your face and makes you comfortable to watch. Okay? So we've done two things. Neither of them cost us anything or required any skill at all. All we had to do was face the window. Now comes the one thing that's a little bit tricky, and that's the sound. Audio is 60% of the quality of your physical production. You have to pay attention to the audio. So if you're using your iPhone or something, and I love the iPhone for shooting videos, then you've got to be pretty close to it, within arm's length. If you're any further than arm's length away, then your audio starts to sound kind of echoey, and you need an external microphone. And then you'll have to plug that into the mic and into the iPhone. You'll have to get like a little adapter cable to plug the mic into, and it becomes like a whole thing. So the thing to do is just keep the iPhone within arm's length. Set up in front of the window. Make sure your background looks good, and you're good to go.
Wonderful. Earlier on, you spoke about doing a lot of preparation for your videos and preparing scripts. How much detail do you recommend goes into the scripts? Is it a word-for-word thing that you read off an auto cue, or is it some bullet points with the structure of what you want to talk about, and then you talk to each point? What's your recommendation there?
This comes down to your personal preference, I think. I like using an auto cue program, or a teleprompter, as we call it over here. And I just throw it up on the screen, and I can just read it. But I enjoy doing that kind of thing because it makes me actually more comfortable. Now, some people, that makes them just, they would rather crawl out of their skin than read something off a teleprompter. So in that case, the best thing to use is just note cards. I've seen people do a really decent job just holding a stack of note cards in their hand, and every once in a while, looking at them, and then just mostly, though, maintaining eye contact with the camera. That's really the most important thing. So whether you're using an auto cue or whether you're using note cards, or maybe you've got something like taped up next to the camera or something like that, it's important to have as much eye contact with the camera as possible. And so if you're using the note card thing, that's really that translates to sometimes what people see in a public speaker. So they might see you looking down at your notes when you're standing at a lectern or something. Well, it could be the same thing on camera, as long as you don't have too many of them, and as long as you're not looking at them the whole time. If you're just referring to them every once in a while, and you just put nice big words on there to remind yourself of what you're talking about. The difficulty happens when you try to do too much at once, I think. And so what I would do, I think if you've got quite a lot to say, by the way, I think that would be a mistake. But if you want to do an awful lot, the thing to do would be just to record it in stages, and then just use the editing program in your iPhone, like, iMovie or something, and just put those little pieces together. That's getting into editing, but it's probably something that people will want to learn. The alternative to that is to record like a 1 or 2 minute video where you can just talk. And if you can just keep the structure in your head for a couple of minutes, it takes some practice. You might have to do it 10 times or 15 times, but by the time you're done, it'll be really pretty good if you haven't tried to bite off more than you can chew. Here's the rule. Make your video about one thing and one thing only. And when you do that, your video will be a lot easier to follow. Why? Because video is done in real time. It's linear. We have to pay attention to it. It's not like you can go back and, people don't tend to go back and watch videos again like they do text. So it's got to be very clear and easy to follow. That's why structure is so important. So just try not to don't try to cover too many topics at once.
Thank you. I'm interested by that maintaining eye contact with the camera. That's something that I hadn't appreciated until you mentioned it then, but I guess it makes the viewer feel like you're talking directly to them, and it keeps them engaged.
Now it's really important. Yeah, I can't even emphasize how important that is. People forget about this because, if you're on Skype or something and you're actually, I think we have kind of a holdover from this muscle memory of what it's like to be on Skype and seeing the other person. So the other person's looking at their computer screen because that's where you are. Mm-hmm. So they're not looking at you. There's no eye contact. And you're looking at them. You're looking at them looking at you, also looking at the screen. And neither one of you are looking actually at the other person in the eye. Now, you're not really, but if you could look at that little camera, at that little Skype camera, it actually makes that person feel more connected to you, even though you aren't physically seeing them. And the reason is that the connection is being made with them. And when it's on camera, like when it's not simultaneous, The connection is happening. It's just time delayed. That's why it's important to maintain eye contact with the camera.
That's really good. That's really good. Now let's circle back to, I guess, thanks for all those video tips, but let's have a look at what you enjoy personally. What marketing or web marketing activity brings you the most joy?
Well, I think it's making those videos on a weekly basis. You know, I love trying to figure out what the people on my list are thinking about. And when I do a video, often they'll comment on it. I might get emails back, or they'll, comment on the YouTube video or on the blog. And in that way I can, kind of get a read on, how they're feeling and what they're thinking about this kind of content and where they want to go with it or where they don't want to go with it. Sometimes I find out they're not interested at all. So it's important for me to do this kind of thing. And it's really almost the only thing I do now in terms of marketing. Every once in a while, I'll do a podcast with a fantastic person like you. But more often than not, I'm just doing those videos and I love doing them and I like making them better, because the more you do something, hopefully the better you get at it. When I'm not pushing the envelope, I feel like I'm cheating.
How do you find doing recorded videos versus doing live videos, I guess, via webinars or Google Hangouts?
Yeah, I do Google Hangouts on a weekly basis. That's the other thing I do, but I do it with my with the members of my inner circle, and then I do a monthly hangout with the other members of the Video Brain Trust. And I love doing those things. I mean, I really do. I like the immediate feedback because, when you're making videos, obviously the feedback is not at all immediate. Mm. And so those are a lot of fun. I think those are just probably more fun for me than they are for people, for the other people. But they seem to have fun. They laugh and they have fun. And I think we get a lot done because, the interaction is immediate.
Mm. How about a pro tip that you've got for us, Steve? Because you've obviously done lots and lots of videos and seen the good and the bad. For the more advanced listeners, what's a pro tip or some pro tips that you recommend we consider?
Well, yeah, I think, I got into this just a few years ago. I mean, I started around 2010, 2011. Well, I really started in earnest around the end of 2010. And I wanted to do things the right way, the quote unquote right way. Mm. And so I did a lot of copying of what I saw around me. And after a while, that it started making me feel really strange, really kind of like not myself. And here I was preaching authentic video marketing, and yet I'm, imitating so much of what other people are doing. So I think if this is a pro tip, it's for people who've been out there a while and, or maybe not really a huge amount of time, is just be yourself. I mean, not be yourself. We're all different people. We're so many different people all day long. We play different parts. We probably play 5 or 10 parts a day, depending on who we're with. But what I mean is just do things the way you want to do them, and they'll probably come out a lot better than you think. But I think that what I would want to say and get feedback actually from people who are really pros at this is I think there are only 3 important things in marketing. Number 1, have something that people want. Number 2, have a great offer for it. And then number 3, at least so-so marketing. Because I don't think you need great, fantastic marketing if you've got the other 2 not.
And if the first 2 are not, then I guess the marketing takes care of itself because you'll have happy customers who are living, breathing proof of the product in the first place. And I guess the word of mouth from happy customers that have had a problem solved makes the marketing incredibly smooth compared to trying to force a square peg in a round hole and be constantly convincing people that this is the product or the service that they need. So certainly that understanding the problem and being able to solve it and having it as something that people want makes total sense.
It does to me, and I think those of us who are involved in marketing a lot, tend to put so much emphasis on marketing that we forget those other two things, which are actually far more important. I think there is some marketing that goes into creating a great offer, and that's really super important. But that's just finding out the elements of the things that people want that you can give them. So, I agree with you there too.
Uncovering those needs and articulating how the product actually benefits them in a way that's authentic, or delivered in a way that's authentic and trustworthy.
Yes.
Now, just before we finish up this call, Steve, who are the people that you learn from?
Well, Sean D'Souza is the person that I have studied a lot with over the years. I really like the way he does what he does. He's very consistent. His tagline used to be, how many yachts can you water ski behind? Which really summed up a lot about, having your priorities in the right place. And I learned a lot about online marketing, about working with joint venture people and expanding in a very quick way from Bill Barron. And I like the tremendous common sense and incisive mind of Dov Gordon. And I've done quite a bit of work with Srikumar Rao, who is kind of a business mystic. And then I like to keep tabs on what is like sort of the cutting edge of marketing techniques by keeping tabs on Frank Kern.
And Steve, have you got any closing thoughts or final pieces of advice, or just anything else you'd like to get off your chest before we call it a day?
I don't know. I mean, I think I said it before, I think people need to trust themselves more so that they can represent their companies in an authentic way. And when you can do that, you can get on video with joy, with enthusiasm, with great responsibility, and represent your company and what it is you have to offer in a way that creates infectious enthusiasm. And do things that please you, but get that on video so that you can broadcast that everywhere. There is no more powerful way of getting the word out about your company and about you and about the relationships that you want to create with the right people than by allowing people to see you on video, and then do some decent marketing around it.
And how can listeners find out more about you or get in touch with you, Steve?
Well, they can go to brainyvideo.com. They can email me at steve@brainyvideo.com, and all that's on the website. And there's just a ton of stuff. They can. I recently just put all my blog posts into categories. So if they click on blog, they can then go down to the categories and just browse like they're in the cafeteria and have a great time.
That is awesome. And I do recommend viewers check out the Video Brain book as well, which is available on Steve's website, which is brainyvideo.com. Steve, thanks so much for joining us, and have yourself a great day.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me. You have a great day too. Down under.
Oh, that accent is 10 out of 10.
That's terrible, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
I love it. I love it. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for my chat with Steve Washer. I learned a heap there. I really liked how he has a video for each stage of the marketing process, or each page of his website, where he's guiding the visitor on an educational journey to the point where ideally they become a customer. And that's something that I think there's definitely room for improvement on the Blue Wire website, is adding that personal touch and that guidance on the journey through the website. I mean, we've certainly put a lot of thought into the content and the journey that we take people on, but having spoken with Steve, I think that there's definitely a lot of room for more videos of Toby and me just talking people through it. Might only be for a minute or two, but talking to people on the download pages or the thank you pages or the webinar registration pages. So there's a few to-do items, certainly for me, as a result of that podcast. But I really liked how he made videos seem very approachable, because we've all got the technology, we've all got something important that we can share with the world, And if we just, understand some of those basics, like the background and making that organized and neat and actually facing natural light, recording during the day, and having very decent audio. And those three simple things can actually be the difference between a really amateur-looking video and a video that you make yourself, but is actually of really high quality. I was interested to see what Steve had to say about using a script or a teleprompter, because I've certainly experimented with both. And I guess depending on how long the videos are that I'm shooting and how often I've actually explained it before, if it's new content or it's a new video, I like to have the confidence of a script to read from on a teleprompter. But if it's something that I've explained in presentations or to clients or on webinars, probably 100 times, then I'm quite confident with the delivery. And so some of the videos that we've been shooting lately for our Social Media That Works online program, I've been delivering just straight to the camera with no script, but really as if I was just explaining it to somebody sitting across from me or sitting next to me. And I've certainly found that format has worked quite well. So really interesting stuff from Steve. I recommend checking out his website, brainyvideo.com. And finally, if you've got any questions or feedback, please let me know. I'm at adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. And of course, you can tweet me at Franklin_Adam. And if you enjoyed this show, I'd love it if you took the time to leave us a review on iTunes. It certainly is very important in terms of getting visibility on iTunes, and it means a lot to us to get your feedback as encouragement and as a way to get good quality guests on the show. So thank you for listening right the way through to the end, and I will see you next time.